Now do it again. Now we're good.
Call this meeting to order. I'm Martin Bailey, Chairman of the Planning Commission, and Josh will read the instructions for the meeting tonight.
Have a feedback. Echo.
I do hear that feedback. We'll let they'll work on it while I read the script tonight. I think it's the owl. Test.
Still it.
Nope. Is it feeding from the back or the? Muting this doesn't work. Well, I just did though. All right, I'll deal with the feedback while I read this. This is the July 21st, 2026 Planning Commission meeting. My name is Joshua Smith. I'm the Planning Director, City of Prineville. Oh, it's the TV. There we go. That was from our previous meeting. A copy of this procedure, tonight's agenda, and the copies of the staff report are available in the back of the entrance. I think I printed enough. If not, we can get some more if anybody wants any. All those in attendance are asked to sign the attendance sheet, and please include your address. There's a section on that attendance sheet for the project you're interested in. The commission's job is to conduct public hearings for the purpose of making land use decisions and or recommendations according to the ordinances and laws of the city of Prineville and the state of Oregon. The commission may not vary from the adopted laws or ordinances. If a law or ordinance is considered to be unfair or unworkable, there is a process to amend the ordinance. All city land use ordinances must meet minimum standards of the enabling state statutes and administrative rules. All applications being heard tonight are being weighed against the law and ordinances in effect at the time of the application was filed. So as the procedure, briefly, each item will begin with a staff report from myself and an additional comments from the staff report after the staff report has been written. All staff reports are available 7 days prior to the hearing and automatically incorporated into the record. After staff, comments from other agencies will be presented. The applicant and those in support will come next, followed by opposition. For those who are neutral but just have questions, they will come last. The applicant is given the final rebuttal, at which time the public hearing may be closed, followed by commission discussion and action. Testimony from all concerned shall address the applicable law or criteria. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient detail to afford the commission and other parties an opportunity to respond means that no appeal can be made to the City Council or Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise a constitutional or other issue related to conditions of approval with sufficient detail to allow the local government or its designee to respond precludes action for damages in circuit court. If you testify, please approach the front of the room, state your name and address. If you're representing someone else, please state who you are representing. So at this time, has any member of the commission had any ex parte contact or feel they have a conflict of interest on anything on the agenda?
No.
Well,
I do. Joe Becker, what is the conflict?
I have a personal connection to the application for the change of
CU 2026 103?
103.
Okay, so
I'll have to abstain from any conversation or votes on that.
just recuse yourself from that.
Yep.
Okay,
I have the same.
good thing we have enough commissioners. From the first application?
Yes.
Let's write those down.
has everybody signed in?
Okay. We'll mention that right at the beginning. Any members of the audience wish to challenge our commissioners? If so, please approach the mic and state the bias. None noted. And I think I'll turn it back over to you, Marty, for the application.
Okay. The first thing we have of tonight on the public hearings is CU 2026-103 for change of use from residential to professional office.
Did you kick that on, Daniel? Thank you. As just mentioned previously, Commissioners Jason York and Joe Becker have recused themselves from this application since they have conflict of interest. Get my pointer here. CU 2026-103 for a change of use. This is a residential use to a professional commercial use. As I just said, applicable criteria is the city land use code, all the ordinance listed there, including the comprehensive plan and other enabling ordinances. Zoning of the property is residential R2 and designated as outline. Oh, that's wrong. Designated as commercial or as residential on the comprehensive plan. So that is not correct. It's residential zoning and it's residential on the comp plan. Notice went out to neighbors on June 17th and newspaper notice went out on July 7th. Public comments. So I didn't receive any written comments from neighboring property owners. I did receive one from the owner, which I put in front of all you, basically in favor of it. Obviously, she's the owner trying to sell her property. I did receive verbal comments from neighbors who were in favor. I did not receive any in opposition. Notice was provided to agencies and departments electronically through development review, our DRC list, and no comments were received in negative to that or of any concern. And we did have a commissioner just show up. Erica, do you have any conflicts of interest or ex parte contract? You do not. Thank you very much. Location. It's Deer and First, Southwest Deer and First Street. It's right at the dividing line between north and south. I put the Justice Center in there, labeled it so you can kind of get your bearing. It's kind of this odd section between Main Street and Deer Street. Gets a lot of commercial traffic, but it is still residential on this this section of town. It's a location you might remember used to be the Bella Boutique. It was a retail shop that was done really early 2000s, I think 2006 or so. It was a little retail shop till about 2020 when it was sold to be turned back into a residence. Back before it became Bella, it was a pretty much of a wreck of a house and was upgraded to its current standard. But it was never fully turned back into a residential home. Site description, so you can kind of see an aerial view of the picture. I should use the mouse so you can see it online. This is a site. Obviously, First Street is turned, so you can see the whole picture. You got the main building here. The garage was built after Bella left, and it was turned back into residential, and the driveway was put in. The layout really hasn't changed. The site is relatively the same. Landscaping, sidewalks are all in good shape. ADA ramp actually still exists in the back, so those things are still viable to be turned back into commercial. There's kind of a street view of the shot. You can see the fence was put up, the garage was put up for residential use. Most likely you'll have to do some type of a ADA parking through a tenant improvement with the building department, but that's relatively probably the only improvement that might need to be made. Previously, the parking was where the garage is. Site plan of the building. You can see kind of an aerial view, basically the same layout. You can see the ADA ramp back here going back to a potential paved area for the ADA. Theoretically, there's probably 1, 2, 3 parking spots right now off street with the garage, which might be slightly less, 1 or 2 less than needed for real estate office, but there's plenty of on-street parking on 2 sides. I'm going the wrong way. Oh no, I did this on purpose. So the zoning, you can see the breakdown here. You can see this kind of strip right on First Street. It's kind of in this gap. Most likely, I'm thinking maybe in the future, this will likely go to commercial. It's just we don't need a whole lot of commercial right now. But as you can see, this is creeping over. This Hansick house right here is already professional office. That was done back in the 90s. And as you move through, there's enough traffic on First Street. This is very possible that this whole block becomes commercial at some time in the future. So you can get a kind of a realistic view of what that looks like. General findings. So when we do these professional offices in residential, we have a set of criteria that we look at in 153.083. Has to be in a pre-existing home or building, which it is. Has to be a general improvement in the physical appearance. Nothing will really change. It'll probably actually be maintained better as a business than potentially as a residence. Traffic and parking can't adversely affect the residential area. It's not passing through. It's going down Deer Street, which is a major road, and First Street, which is heavily used by the commercial area. So it's not passing through a residential area and adversely affecting it. And then have frontage on a designated arterial or major collector. This is the only one that had a question mark next to it when we looked at it. And why, and really what the commission kind of needs to decide. It's really interesting because this is the only scenario I find this happening in our town is where we have a major collector coming down and just stopping and turning into a local. Most of them would tee off onto an arterial or tee off onto a minor collector connecting the neighborhoods and such. I couldn't find another instance where this scenario exists where you have kind of the corner touching, but not the frontage exactly. So it's kind of a judgment call whether you can consider that frontage. From my perspective, this house has been commercial before. A real estate office is a pretty minor use. I have not seen any opposition. We'll see if we have any tonight. But I think it works in that area. And if you know the building, and I think the applicant will speak to it, it's not fully, hasn't been a full residence for 20 years. Even the last 5 years was never fully converted back into a residential structure. And then that was it. So any questions from commission? It's a fairly simple application. It's really more of a judgment on those criteria right there. And if the applicant meets them, and if there's any significant opposition to the change. Any questions before we grab the applicant? No? Okay.
Are there any other city, state, county, or federal agencies that have comments? None noted. Okay, applicant?
So I'm Jessica Lay, and my address is 342 Northwest Myers Butte Road, Pell Butte, Oregon, 97753. So thanks for hearing me out today. Josh summed it up pretty well, but I'll just add a couple little things. We're just respectfully asking for approval for this to be approved for a CUP for a real estate office. The existing structure, as he said, was used as a commercial building for about 20 years as Bella Boutique, with a lot of traffic coming and going as a retail commercial aspect, where a real estate office is a lot less impactful. You have, about 3 agents that will be operating out of that office, and most of them will be there, throughout the day, but it won't be a lot of cars coming and going. This day and age, real estate is a lot of digital, and so we don't have a lot of clients that necessarily come to the office in person. So when the Bella Boutique remodeled the building, they basically gutted it from top to bottom and really turned it into a commercial entity. There's no closets in any of the bedrooms, so they're technically not considered bedrooms. The current owner has to wheel her clothes on a rack out to the garage every day when she has a showing. It's really not, the kitchen was removed. So there really is, she kind of put a makeshift kitchen in there, but there really is no kitchen. So it's not it really isn't a residence anymore. And the listing's been for sale for over 2 years. I also had it listed previously, and all of our feedback was the same, that this really isn't a home. It's more of a business. It was completely reconstructed with removal of the kitchen. They added the ADA compliant access to the building with the doors, along with the ramp. They also did commercial grade doors to get in and out of the building. So everything has been pretty much reconstructed for commercial. So just want to kind of point that out. The biggest question, of course, is it facing this major collector road, which our argument is that it is touching the corner. I know it's a long stretch, but we all know that First Street is incredibly busy. It's a very busy street, even though that section of First is not considered a major collector or a main road. So our argument is that they identified that the major collector roadway terminates right there on the corner of this property that we're asking you to consider switching. The homeowner was gracious enough to spend 4 hours out of her life doing her own traffic study. And that might be in your packet, but on June 30th, she did a 2-hour traffic study with just a basic clicker off Amazon. And in 2 hours, 556 cars turned that corner right there. So that, I would argue, is definitely a very busy corner, and I think any of us that live here know that. Then again, on July 11th, she did a different time of the day because she wanted to have kind of some comparison, and she did another 2-hour study from 10 to 12, and there was 443 cars that turned that corner. So our argument is that that is a very busy corner, and I don't think that the real estate office is going to impact that in a negative way whatsoever. There's also a letter from her in there in your packet. Hopefully you have a chance to read that. So unlike many commercial uses, like I said, real estate office is very limited traffic. We're really only operating during normal business hours for the most part, Monday through Friday. We work a lot on weekends at home and in our car showing properties. So we don't expect to generate a ton of impactful traffic. So we also have plenty of parking off street there, and like Josh mentioned, and we plan on being good stewards of that property and making it beautiful and keeping it beautiful. So in conclusions, we think that it meets all the standards, and we really hope that you do too, and we just hope to be a part of this community. So thank you.
Questions?
I would just make note of the property across the street immediately to the north is already zoned commercial. So that property's been for sale for quite some time. So perhaps eventually that might spur that property to be developed. I don't know.
Yeah, and actually the lot right next to it was a dental office for a while.
Yes.
Is the old hospital commercial?
It is not.
Not?
Yeah, we're right next to the old hospital, across the street from the apartment complex, and everything across the street is commercially zoned. And we're 227 feet from a rock throw to the Justice Center. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Those in favor?
Don't you have to have those closed?
Support, yeah. He's right.
Yeah. So, no anything else to speak then? Those opposed? None noted. So with that, commission, what do you want to do?
You want to
Close.
close it?
Close the.
Ready to close it? Okay, when closed. Commission discussion?
I can't think of any good reason to say no. Truthfully. Given the history of the property, I don't.
No, I agree.
My only concern is parking, and I can't imagine a real estate office creating enough parking issues to be an issue there.
Yeah, and in the review and the staff report, you'll see it's like it could probably technically use one more, but it would alter the site so much that it's not really worth changing the character of the house. So I feel it worked when it was Bella. they have a tremendous amount of frontage that it won't matter that much. Other than the ADA, which the building department's gonna require a spot to be designated.
And it does not have to be paved, does it?
The ADA will,
It will be paved.
they just, I don't know where they're gonna put it because they regulate that.
There was discussion that there was a ramp.
There's a ramp,
There's
but
ramp,
the actual
parking.
parking space is not there anymore because they put the garage over it. So that'll be it's a condition of this approval to meet building code and ADA compliance.
There's no ramp in front.
It's in the back.
Okay, anything else? Nothing else? Open for a motion.
I would make the motion that we, in favor of accepting the staff report and the record of tonight's proceedings, as incorporated as findings of fact in favor of this application. I move the application be approved, subject to the conditions of approval as they've been finalized and based upon the findings of fact in favor of the application.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None noted.
Perfect. And Jess will get that worked up in a final decision, get Marty to sign it, and I'll send it over to you.
Okay,
That was the easy one.
Yeah, that was
the
easy.
next item we have is SUB 2026-101 for an 88 lot subdivision with 3 mixed use commercial lots within the Iron Horse outline development plan. Staff?
All right, main event. So SUB 2026-101 is called, at least the applicant is currently calling it, the Vistas at Barnes Butte. This proposal is a subdivision consisting of 85 residential lots, 3 mixed-use commercial lots. This is basically envisioned when the Iron Horse ODP, Outline Development Plan, was originally adopted back in 2005 and updated in 2013 when they moved the school, and updated again in 2017 to remove some roads. But I'll show you the ODP here in a second. So this is part of that planned Iron Horse development that is now mostly city property in the park in the Barnes Butte Rec area. But these areas in that one area are now on the north side of the Barnes Butte Elementary School and kind of going up the butte that is still privately owned and still open for development. Applicable criteria: Iron Horse ODP, City of Prineville Code of Ordinance, Chapter 153, and all other enabling ordinances of the city. Zoning is currently residential in the comprehensive plan as well as residential R2 with this outline development overlay. So the overlay actually changes the R2 zone actually to be more strict. Notice was sent out on June 26th and newspaper notice on July 7th. Public comments. Written notice was provided to neighboring owners, including the Iron Horse HOA. So we did expand the notice area to cross the wetland area. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been within that 100 feet. We expanded across Combs Flat, and we hit, obviously, the HOA had to be notified as well for the Iron Horse. This portion of the Iron Horse, this development will not be in the Iron Horse HOA. It will have its own. So that's a key difference. When this property was sold, it was not required to be in the Iron Horse HOA, although that is their prerogative whether they want to do that or not. Notice was provided to agencies through Department Electronic through our development review email list. This goes out to all utilities and other agencies and interested parties. I didn't receive any verbal or written comments from neighboring property owners. City staff, when we did our DRC meeting, we had comments on water availability. So there's some question on some of our booster pump things, but that's for us to work out with the construction drawings. Street layout and drainage issues are some of the issues we need to work out in construction drawings, mostly because of how the city wants to maintain those areas. Fire commented that they need a fire compliant plan and prefer the wider streets that are being proposed. There's the location. So if you kind of get your bearings, you get this, I better use the mouse. This is the Barnesville Elementary School. They're currently building houses right here at the end of Discovery Loop that's kind of finishing that first phase of Iron Horse. Just to the north of the roundabout on the west side is where Lennar and Polish Homes were building their subdivision. South of the elementary school is where another Iron Horse subdivision will be developed as per the plans previously, and it is already approved. So this is kind of that first area coming off the roundabout below the track that is the subject property. There's the tentative plan. So when I first saw it, I thought this is ambitious, especially with the commercial. So the intent is to kind of do a higher density lots in the center, a little larger on the outside, a little bit larger coming down Iron Horse Drive, and then provide these three kind of larger commercial lots, which are part of the original ODP, that may also provide second story residential. So they were the area in the ODP was always a mixed use area. It was intended to be commercial on the ground floor, residential above. The first thing you notice, I think, at least what I noticed, was this commercial area to the north. Obviously, the commercial, what's actually being built on the commercial lots is not being approved at this time. They will be completely separate applications, and they will be governed by our C4 convenience commercial zone. So those will come in separately, completely different design review applications. But you notice this one is blank. I think the intent here and why they wrap the road down instead of going straight across, one reason, it's blocked by the weird line, the way they did the property lines back when they sold the property to the city. They created this jog. I can't for the life of me figure out why they did that, because it almost creates the need to bring that road down. What it does is create a unique opportunity to create commercial adjacent to the city's potential rec center and Barnes Butte rec area, so that you don't have to cross the street, what will be likely a relatively busy street because it's coming off the roundabout, and serve the whole area with a commercial side of things. That's their intent. That's why you see this road snaking down instead of trying to jet across and stranding property here. Which part do you want me to repeat? So this is the roundabout you see up here on the side. Yep. This is the Hudspeth and Combs Flat roundabout. And so this is going to be a main road that comes in and serves this entire, even, next phases of the subdivision. So part of the reason of separating this commercial to the north of that road and having it adjacent to the Barnes Butte rec area and what could be the city's rec center, is so that people can have unfettered access without crossing a street. And then that commercial area would then serve that recreation area immediately instead of having, a lot of foot traffic coming across a major road. So that's primarily why this exists. And then these two would be more, I think, residential or neighborhood type commercial. And correct. And we'll have time for questions. I got a lot more to go. I got a ton more to go. So I know what you're getting at. A lot of the traffic stuff is probably going to be the biggest concern with these types of things. The only access points into this subdivision will be the Hudspeth roundabout, the Hudspeth Road here, and Iron Horse Drive down by the school. That's it. There is no other access point off of Combs Flat. Eventually, they'll come in off Anglers, but that's for future phases. The other thing you'll notice, and I'll bring these up later, is the street layout here. It's also in the staff report, so you can see what the street cross section will be. So this is the original Iron Horse ODP. So you can see what they originally planned back in 2005. You can see the real high density commercial area with all the different densities of the houses. They quickly realized that the market moves faster than they can think. So they didn't like the fact that they had all these designated densities and where everything was going to go. And in 2013, they updated this to remove the exact densities and just go with a varying housing, this tan, right? So the tan area is essentially you create your density as the market desires when it desires it. So this is any of these tan areas as they come in, they can choose what their density is, but it is single family. It's not a multifamily, it's a single family zone. So you have multifamily designations are these pink areas, and that's it. You can see your civic area is the school. The tan is all single family. There's varying degrees of types of single family. Townhomes are still single family. What's being proposed tonight are individual homes, and I'll show you those later on. And then you see the red area was that original commercial district. You can see how it shrunk because commercial is hard. It's not easy, especially when you have commercial directly down south. You need a lot of density to make that work. Now, when Combs Flat was built, it shifted. So the roundabout was actually shifted west and a little north, putting that commercial kind of on the city side, which we're not going to build commercial on our side. So that's forcing that commercial area to be in the southeast corner where they are proposing it. I still find that to be consistent with the ODP. They're still doing what was originally planned and trying to move forward and hopefully making that work. If the commercial doesn't work, they can always come back with an amendment and say, we're just going to make these single family lots, but they're going to make an attempt at it. There are a few things to make their subdivision work that they are requesting. And so there's two modifications that they are requesting. First, the street cross section. And this is actually a modification that the Planning Commission has already made for the previous subdivision that we did just a couple months ago, which was Brett Morgan's subdivision south of the school. All these colored streets in the outline development plan were different varying sizes and different levels of parking and different widths. I put the three that were in this subdivision, B1, B2, and D1. B1 was basically this gonna be more of a thoroughfare around the park. This, of course, is not going to happen anymore. This will not be connected over there. There's no reason to have it. It basically was the same cross section as B2. It's just a little wider right of way, but the lanes were the same. Most of the subdivision was B2, which is our standard street, 36 feet wide, parking both sides, 6-foot planter strip, 5-foot sidewalks. The one that we really don't want to be built is this purple one, and which has not been built even with the original street. But that is no parking. It's essentially just travel lanes with bike lanes, and it was meant to be kind of a gateway road. That's not going to work with the school. That's not going to work with homes. That's not going to work with any of that. So the applicant is saying, I don't want to build this street. I want to build the standard city street. There's the B1. The only difference between this and B2 is this 64-footer right away. This is the street that they want to build. This is the street we approved in the previous subdivision and what we will try to approve and what the fire department is asking us to approve going forward on all these areas in Iron Horse. So we don't keep arguing back and forth on fire lanes and where parking can be and can't be. So that's one modification they're asking for, is to essentially eliminate B1 and D1. Alleys will remain the same as they always have. This is our standard alley in the city. The other modification is a setback modification, and this is a little less of a modification and more of an addition. The original Iron Horse subdivision did not have garage setbacks, primarily because they were all alley accessed and they didn't intend there to be one. And at the time, the city didn't have one. We do now have an alley setback, and we do have front-loaded setbacks, but Iron Horse still remains with no setbacks off alleys. And this is kind of an image of a current part of Royce's Roden Street. You can see the type of driveways they build. It works in Iron Horse. The HOA takes care of it. It doesn't seem to be a problem, but it really kind of has a lack of parking. You have to park in your garage, or you have to park sideways in the alley, or you have to park in the street, and you're not supposed to park in the street very long, and it just creates a situation. These larger lots tend to be a little easier. This subdivision has much smaller lots, which creates a bigger problem for that parking situation. So what they're asking to do is essentially slide this front setback from 10 to 5, move that house forward, and actually create a garage setback in the back off the alley for these these cottage lots, giving them a minimum of 15 feet. I think that's only for one of their house plans. All of their house plans will have 20 or more feet in the back. And I'll show you those in a second. And then we were going to add, for the front loaded lots that you see around the corner, we'll add what is now the standard city setback for a regular street, which is 20 feet property line, 25 to a sidewalk. That's right now what we're using in some of those areas of Iron Horse is just 20 feet. So this would provide that front yard setback for a garage. I feel like this is a minor addition and actually benefits the subdivision and other areas around it for providing parking more in the rear than having to park in the street or around the corner in someone else's neighborhood. And so these are the kind of homes that are the examples of what they're going to build. They're smaller. I'll go over the site plans here in a second. They have the basic architectural elements, as you'll see. You go from kind of the smaller sizes up to, 1,500 square feet and 2-story homes. Bringing those homes forward doesn't seem to be an issue. This is probably more like a 15-foot setback, but you can bring that house clear up here. Our right-of-ways are designed to handle all the utilities, so we no longer do public utility easements behind sidewalk. Everything's in the street, which was a lot of reason why we had those front setbacks to begin with when we had narrower right-of-ways. What these site plans look like, and you can see how it opens up the back. By shifting that house forward, you get this is, I think, a 28-foot. You can actually park 2 cars in the driveway, 2 in the garage. So you're actually adding 4 where previously they would only have 2. Going up in size, again, 4 spaces would be provided off alley, 4 spaces provided off alley. That's probably the closest normal 20-foot setback. And then their 2 stories are going to give us tremendous amount of room, even on the sides. So you could actually theoretically have even more parking or at least some storage for trailers and such. So that is one of the modifications that's part of your part of the staff report and part of the conditions is to change those setbacks to add that. I'll go back to it. Basically, change this front setback and add these 2 to the list. These are what will show up in the final decision, what we'll use to govern the site plans as we move forward with the subdivision. Couple of unique scenarios that I wanted to bring up. There's 3 of them because of the commercial area for the most part. If you look at Road B in here, splits the commercial lots. That isn't necessarily necessary, I guess I should say. It's a little close to the roundabout. It's probably too close actually for that turn. We would rather just see that shut down. If these go commercial, there's really no reason to make this a public street. It could simply be a private drive. They could move a private drive over here, and that would be plenty of room. Or they could just simply make it a private drive here, do a cul-de-sac, have a turnaround, and just not do any kind of public right-of-way at all. The only reason this would come into play is if, for some reason, they modified these in the future to be residential only, then they'd need a street. But as they are commercially, from the city's perspective, they can certainly do a public street if they want to. It's a whole lot more expensive. But we don't want it to connect that close to the roundabout. And we'd probably prefer it just to be private. Public parking lot, kind of like Otico Plaza. You would just have it come in and you would own all that. The point being, this is probably going to come later. So the condition I have in the application is that road be essentially be reevaluated prior to the final plat. Prior to them platting these lots, we would really consider whether they're going to make this a right of way or not, and then either eliminate it, modify it, or relocate it. So one of these three options. They have time. They don't need to plat this right away. It's not a needed street for the primary subdivision. So we're kind of pushing that decision off to a future date for them to choose. Next modification is something we have with all subdivisions. When you do a subdivision, you have to look to the next property and make sure they have access. In this case, they have plenty of access going to the east, plenty of access going to the south. There's a limited access going north into the city property. Originally, there was kind of a street connection there, which is why I think this notch is there. It just doesn't really work. So to pull that access, they have some frontage here to pull that access away from the roundabout and make it more utilitarian. The thought is to create an extension of this road D. Or, and this is kind of my thought process, this connection would be okay, but it splits that commercial property, kind of makes it a little, it'll work, but it may not be fully necessary, but it gives us our access we need for the future. What I'm thinking might be more likely is that this is a condition that they at least provide this right-of-way access, or they pursue a mutually agreed upon alternative. That alternative, in my mind, is actually a land swap. That would something that the council would have to approve. I'm looking at this area here and potentially swapping it for this area over here. So I'm leaving this condition open as an option for them to pursue if they choose. So either just extend this road, that gives us our access, that gives us a chance to do a fire or a bus turnaround or whatever we need for the rec center or Barnesby rec area. They can leave it to commercial areas, or they can pursue an alternative. When you start laying these roads out, it becomes very clear that this should probably be private and this should probably be public. Just because this is steeper, this is flatter, it lends itself better as the road networks push to the east to actually take this triangle out of the city's rec area and swap it. That's my opinion. I'm just putting it into the condition so it's not a modification they have to do later, and they can pursue that on their own. The last one to address is this offsite improvements. So if you remember when we did the subdivision to the south of Barnesby Elementary School, they have a requirement to build part of that road. Well, if these guys move faster, they're going to have to build part of that road. So that is a unique scenario. Doesn't come up very often. Likely they'll partner on this, but they also have a condition in there to require the full extent of that road. They're not going to build half of it. So they will be required to do that whole thing if they go first. If Brett Morgan's subdivision goes ahead of them, no big deal. Or they can work together on it. So that's kind of, we don't generally have offsite improvements like that associated with our subdivisions. Traffic, of course, this is what's everybody's on their mind all the time when you do subdivisions. Where's the traffic going to go? Where's the cars going to move? How the pedestrians going to get through? I show this one because this was from the previous subdivision. And when we went through this application, the big concern was Iron Horse Drive. So this number one basically fails when school drop-off happens. And we know that. It doesn't fail any other time. And when we were going through this subdivision, the solution is essentially to connect Iron Horse Drive through, and that was going to be the next subdivision, this subdivision. So this subdivision actually completes that loop. Ignore this. This was a previous drawing. You can see how they put the road through the top and it just dead ended. It's a waste of a street. But this is the traffic study that showed it. So completing this loop actually improves the whole situation, even though you're adding homes and adding uses. It actually makes everything flow better. It still fails in the AM, but it doesn't fail in the PM. There's not a whole lot you can do about that AM traffic with the school. It's a cluster. And here's the actual traffic of basically what they go through is they show the existing conditions, future conditions without this development, and future conditions with. And then they have all the intersections they studied. And you can see this Iron Horse Drive and Combs Flat starts to fail. But it actually gets a little bit better with this development. AM is not what we use to choose what improvements we do. We always use the PM. PM peak is the standard for how we manage our intersections. And they don't fail in the PM. And even if this was showing failure at Iron Horse Drive, we don't have an improvement to ask them to do. There is no solution there other than continuing to create these road connections throughout the neighborhood, eventually connecting over to Angler Street on the other side and on and on up the street. So traffic is going to get more congested. It will as the city grows, but it is not failing at these intersections. And that's why we built Combs Flat Road, to start dispersing that traffic. General findings. So as proposed, in my opinion, it's meeting the outline development plan. Subdivision will extend needed infrastructure to ensure orderly completion of the Iron Horse development south and north of the school. All proposed lots meet the dimensional standards of the ODP or as amended by the conditions of this approval. That's those setback modifications. Does not exceed or can meet resource carrying capacities through required improvements. So that's building the roads, the water, the sewer improvements. And then all infrastructure will be built to city standards for street water and sewer. The specific conditions that I mentioned earlier in the presentation, minimum setbacks shall be modified as proposed, with exception of those front-loaded that have a garage that'll apply to all lots. So if you front-load a lot, it has to meet the front-load setback. It's not just for the cottage lots. Street cross-section for this development will default to B2, which is a standard city street with planter strips and 5-foot sidewalks. The application shall be responsible for all off-site infrastructure requirements, including extending Iron Horse Drive. The proposed commercial lot shall be governed by the city's convenience commercial C4 zone. If that actually does build out as intended, it'll likely just have a zone changed to that effect. The application shall coordinate and reevaluate proposed Road B through the commercial area prior to final plat, so we can figure out how that will actually be served. And the applicant shall provide access to the city property or alternative. So those are kind of specific conditions that are very unique to this subdivision as opposed to any other. And there that is. I'll leave it up so you can see it. That was a lot. So is any questions from the commission at this point? Anything with modifications, any red flags?
Any type of thought about what type of commercial would be going in there?
So applicant can speak to that. The only thing I know is, I mean, this can be discussed. It's going to be basically based on demand. Likely this would be kind of that neighborhood commercial and ground floor, your bakeries, your flower shops, your coffee shops, your those types of like walkable neighborhood type markets. I'm guessing this northern commercial lot will be more open tap house, fire pits, kind of that wild ride style. It would probably be what happens, but you never know.
They're possible for like the bus routing be wanting to go up and around this road, like a big loop around the school?
It'll give the bus routing an option to ride through. Right now, you know how the buses basically go through, they have their own little loop in the parking lot. They'll probably continue to do that and allow the parents to then move through. Because right now the parents are looping, I don't know if we still have that. the parents are coming in, they're looping through here and trying to get back out. And so that's what's causing the congestion. Then they hit this intersection and they're trying to turn left or go straight. And that's what's failing. Those movements westbound are what's failing. Instead of just coming out and taking a right, getting up to the roundabout and either zipping around and coming down or just taking Hudspeth, they're still trying to go straight or left. And that's what's clogging up that intersection. This would allow people, especially with the widening of the street, to actually drop off up here, pull over, and allow the school more options to provide different drop-off locations. It even provides, you notice the street is providing frontage here along the school. Theoretically, they could create a whole nother drop-off for parents to bring it in the back. I mean, it lends itself to create more options for the school to change how they're doing things, because it clearly is not working very well the way it is.
Where my mind's thinking about is the intersection up, not at the roundabout, but all the way to the right, where that road comes into the vertical. Where the north-south hits the east-west on Road A.
Right here.
Yeah, that turn. So is there any potential of that intersection being like a problem for all the traffic wanting to come up? Especially if we have got all the commercial and.
I mean, it's a 36-foot wide street. I don't foresee that to be a problem. It isn't in any of the other streets around town. You're dispersing traffic at this point because they can take any one of these, and it's designed to handle quite a bit. They will be turning, left, but there's nothing. They're not crossing traffic. There's nothing coming down at this point, because this will be the main road that goes into the next phase.
So could part of the issue coming back, trying to get back onto Iron Horse, be resolved by having a right turn only?
If you can get people to do it, yeah. You can shame them. You can shame them into doing it and put a sign up there. Yeah. I mean, we have the same problem at 7th Street. We've talked about that too, is throwing up a right turn. We did it at Knowledge for a while until but we still had to put the median up eventually because people were still taking the left. But that is an option. That's a very minimal option. These connections should help relieve quite a bit of that.
We'll figure out right away what's the easiest way to go.
Yeah. And it might be that way. It might be looping around the other side because this is a whole lot less traffic. Who knows? The idea of something up here too for the rec area would be to, in one of our concept plans that we noticed before, we had a bus drop off for the rec center. And that's where I would envision that going. Whereas the way this road comes in now wouldn't lend itself for that. That was in that original concept plan. So that's kind of why I think the land swap, and you can see how impractical this area is for the city to even utilize. If we did anything with this upper piece, it's kind of orphaned over here. So swapping this would, I think, be advantageous to the city, and we may try to pursue that.
Josh, what's the section off the east of the school there, that triangle? No,
East of the school. Oh, here.
on the other side of the road. That right in there.
The school owns that.
Do you have any idea what they're looking at or anything they've talked about with that?
I've heard everything from a baseball diamond to, this school was designed to expand.
Yeah.
Last thing I heard, they were going to try to put a field in here, but who knows? Again, this connection here to this street would actually lend itself to maybe come in there and do some additional parking for the school instead of blocking it off with homes. There is a pedestrian connection I failed to mention right here that would take you over to the trail too. So they don't have to walk around. Whoops. This is just infill to finish this off, and then these streets will just continue in the next phase, which will likely see larger lots going up the butte. Anything else? See what kind of questions we get.
Any questions for the staff?
Just put it right there.
Go to the applicant.
Okay, no questions for staff, so applicant? Well, actually, are there any other city, state, federal comments? Unnoted. Applicant?
Good evening, Eric Klond, Virgin Engineering, 6300 Northeast Birdsong Lane here in Prineville. High view, what are we trying to do here? There's a lot of apartments going into Prineville right now, 600, 700 apartments. That is a housing source that's out there. We have a significant amount of subsidized housing. If we look up at Peters and Combs Flat, what you have going on there. You also have rooted homes, which is subsidized, where you own your home, but you don't own your land. And there's a lot of people in town that just simply can't afford to buy their first home. And so my goal here is to try to get something that is nice, that's in a neighborhood that will stay nice, that's in a great location, that people can buy their first home, be proud of it, So with this subdivision, one thing we're really keying in on is walkability. And so city has this beautiful Barnes Butte recreational area. Josh mentioned potentially there could be that big rec center up there someday. My goal is this entire subdivision just remains very, very walkable. If you have a child that goes to Barnes Butte Elementary, it's great. They don't have to cross Combs Flat to get there. As far as traffic goes, I know traffic is always a concern. I'm sure this is probably the first traffic study Josh has seen that said that this subdivision will make the traffic better. If we go back to, right here, that is a tough intersection. If we look at this subdivision right here, unfortunately, everything that was approved here was going to impact that subdivision. This will help people get out. It helps them get out onto a collector, not have to go through different neighborhoods. Some of the things that I don't like about the Iron Horse neighborhood, which this is part of the ODP, is the narrow roads. So we're saying we're going to go, instead of 55-foot right away, we'll go 60. We'll make those roads wider. Another thing I don't like about the Iron Horse neighborhood, which it's a great neighborhood, but parking is always tough. And so the ODP requires 2 parking spots, as Josh mentioned. Those 2 parking spots is the garage. There's a lot of people that can't park within their garage, right? And so here we'll go from 2 to 4 to 5, depending upon how we lay it out, parking spots per home. No bulb outs. As far as a neighborhood like this, if I was on the planning commission, I'd be concerned about, is this a developer coming in, slamming a bunch of homes in and leaving? For this development, there's a lot of land to the east. Could that be 20 years of development? Who knows how long? But the landowner, the developer, has a very vested interest in this neighborhood remaining nice, right? As you go up that property, who knows, maybe it's 20 years before you're up onto the elevated, Aubrey Butte part of that. You don't want those people driving through, a Mariposa. You want this to be very nice. And so this will have an HOA, it will have CCNRs to keep it nice. And yeah, just basically, with the rec center being there, be a lot of nice pedestrian traffic up there. As Josh mentioned, we're not talking about the commercial right now, but I agree with pretty much everything he said. If the city truly does this rec center with the swimming pool and a bunch of basketball courts and wrestling courts, that would be nice to be able to, you have a break, you just walk over and get a beer or some food. This area here would be, if and when it happens, very nice, where you have maybe higher end offices, or like Josh said, things that people would want to walk to, go have a coffee. And then up above that, it would be a nice rental. So maybe if you are coming into town and you don't want to rent one of the 700 apartments, this could be a nice place that would have a good view and once again, be very kept up to a very high standard. So yeah, with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
I think my one concern would be the parking, and you said that you do more parking spaces, but what I've noticed in town in the more densely developed areas is people are in a smaller space, but they still have their truck, their trailer. If you get 3 people that have their truck and trailer, you come around a little turn and you're like, "Oh, good thing I'm in my Toyota Corolla because I can barely scoot through." So are we talking spaces big enough for 4 or 5 Toyota Corollas, or are they gonna have room for a truck and a
No,
trailer?
behind these homes, you could park a Ford crew cab.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, 2 of them, potentially 3. And so once again, you know, you don't want people parking on the streets with their trailers and stuff. You know, the CCNRs will address that. But that is always the axe to grind, is just not enough parking. And so once again, the ODP requires 2. We could meet that with the garage. Once again, how many people can actually park in their garage? And so we'll have the 2 parking spots in the garages and then 2 to 3 outside that. So.
Well, and I think part of that's being addressed by the width of the streets. Because a lot of that area up there, it makes me crazy that you're going down the street and all of a sudden you have to go like this and then go back. I mean, you know.
Yep, no bull.
Crazy.
Yeah, no bulb outs here like we have. The streets are 4 feet wider than what you find in Iron Horse. Yeah, I think the biggest thing I would say is, once again, this is just a phase 1 of future developments. And so that, you know, the developer does have a very vested interest that this remains nice for the next 20 years. Any other questions?
Marty's propagating what I can feel it.
Uh,
You look like you were really about ready to say something.
I was just gonna make a comment that I do like to see the east-west streets go through. Because I look around town here and there's so many of our streets that dead end because one development came and years later another came, but looks like with that, it would assist any future development to the east of them.
Yeah, you look at this road here, this is a very expensive road for a developer to build because you're only getting one home on that side of the road. But the goal with that is, you know, these east-west roads will just continue on and you'll just have a very nice grid as it moves into the future.
That's one of the things I like to see with developments is that they don't just walk up a square and
Have dead end streets.
let future streets be dead end.
And we'll see what the desire is for these as we move forward. The plan is, you know, more of a larger single family home, but always have a mix in there that is affordable.
So Eric, the lower left portion where the semi cul-de-sac is.
Oh, here.
Yeah, what the plans for those?
So these would just be, these are the pieces that don't work very well. So these would be homes, but they would be front loaded homes. So front loaded, your garage is in the front. You know, with these homes being relatively narrow, you know, if these were front loaded, all you would see is a garage door. And so that's where having an alley is very nice. Then you have a attractive front of the home and not just garage and cars parked out front.
is there much usable open space or vegetated space in there?
The open space is really up here, you know,
Okay.
this, I'm sure this will have some, you know, eventually some grass and stuff, but
Go back. So I should have addressed that in my deal. If you look at the original OD or the ODP, just pop back.
Yeah,
Sorry, yeah, there you go. So all the green was the open space that was originally required by the Iron Horse ODP. Now the city bought most of it. Right, so all of that green space to the north, which is now the Barnes Boot Rec area, is essentially the open space for this subdivision. And the canyon, I'm gonna point to it, that right there, that's already been dedicated. And then as you move up the butte, you can see the green areas. These are gonna be steep areas that are probably gonna be opened up. That's where you put your trails and such. But for this specific subdivision, you can see there's no green within that area. It is the Barnes Butte Rec area. Good question though, because I missed
Yeah,
that.
good question.
Any other questions?
I like to see the wider streets because that's one of my complaints with all of that Iron Horse area, polished homes, all that area is there's not enough room to meet cars, let alone if somebody's moving in or whatever might be happening. You got something bigger than a Volkswagen.
Oh, yeah. And then as Josh mentioned, the original ODP has that 55-foot wide right of way. It's just too narrow. And so then you have your utilities and an easement. And so our thought is just increase it to 60. That's a normal street. You can keep everything within your right of way rather than a bunch of easements. Yeah, so just real excited. Hope it be a nice subdivision years into the future.
Thank you.
Okay. Those in support?
Yep, almost. You're almost there.
Okay, no one that would speak in support? Those in opposition? None in opposition? So
Now you can do questions.
now, questions? Up to the microphone.
Just name and address.
I'm Lorian Maxim. I live at Iron Horse, 1454 Northeast Hudspeth Road. What do you think? Okay.
That's better.
Anyway, I bought probably the first house in the Iron Horse neighborhood. It doesn't show on that map, but the roundabout there at the top, if you go down left, that's Hudspeth Road right there. And that roundabout alone has just caused so much traffic in our neighborhood. It's awful. This is a neighborhood that's been there for a very long time. And it just seems like the way I see things is that we're kind of shoved to the side and now we're working on new neighborhoods. Well, where's all the traffic from these new neighborhoods going to go? They're going to come right down my street again. So where are you taking into consideration at all the people that live in that neighborhood and that have lived there for 20 years? I've lived there for almost 20 years. And I was not happy when I saw that roundabout there. And the fact that there's no other way to do it, that doesn't fall with me at all. I think that there are other ways to do it. I think that this is the easiest way to do it and probably the less expensive way to do it. But you're not doing the residents of Prineville any favors here whatsoever. And this new development that you're putting in, I would like to see the CCNRs, because it's not Iron Horse CCNRs, right? They've got their own. Did I understand that? Yeah, I would definitely like to see their CCNRs. If these are the type of houses they're building there, they have no yards. There's no green. It's just bark dust and a little bush here and there. That's not acceptable. We know from Iron Horse, we know from experience that people just don't take care of that. For people to move into a house with this thing, they look at this as low maintenance. They don't need to do any work. The yard takes care of itself. Well, it actually looks worse than a lawn that's not mowed because you've got weeds growing up around it. And this, I mean, I can only imagine what this will look like in a year. And the fact that they're rentals, is that correct? They're rentals or no?
Be single family homes, so they can be,
But they can rent them?
you can rent your house too, so yeah.
well, originally you weren't able to, but, I mean, we know what renters do. Let's face it. They don't take care of their homes. And so these are not only going to be small homes that, as they're called, cottages, they are lowering, in my opinion, they are lowering the value of my house because I live in a, 2,000 square foot beautiful home. And now a few blocks away from me are going to be these tiny little cottage homes with no front yard, no grass. And the people that buy them can rent them. And I can only imagine what the landscape's going to look like when that occurs, because it's hard to get homeowners to take care of their yards. And I feel that the city of Prineville has just kind of pushed the existing homeowners who have lived up there for a very long time to the side, because some company wants to come in here and develop this land on the backs of us. And that's just not right. Our neighborhood matters to us. It might not matter to anyone else or the developers building this, but it matters to us, the homeowners who have lived there, who take very good care of their yards. And the fact that there's traffic going up and down my street now, it just makes me sick. The other thing is there have been 8 houses that have either sold or are for sale on Hudspeth Road. So basically you're pushing people out of their homes because of this traffic. And that's just wrong. You guys are just wrong by doing this to residents of Prineville. So, you need to think about I know it's too late now, but this was just very, very poor planning on your part. And you just kind of push the residents to the side and you're doing, what's easy, which is have someone come in and buy and develop land. And doesn't matter who else is there. So I'm just not happy at all with what you guys are doing, period. So that's all I have to say.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
So when we were discussing we talked about the extension of Combs Flat into Peters Road and that roundabout for months before it happened. Did you come to any of those public meetings?
Well,
I don't know that I knew about them. I did get letters in the mail. I received nothing in the mail. And I would think that I would get something in the mail. And to expect people to go and look in the back of the newspaper with all those ads and notices, that's just ridiculous. This kind of stuff needs to be put on the front page of the newspaper. It needs to be mailed out to residents. I don't feel that the outreach was,
I just was curious.
yeah, no, I think the outreach was awful.
answer the question though, this is the original ODP. This is the original plan for Iron Horse, the very neighborhood that you live in.
Mm-hmm.
It's always had the roundabout connected to Hudspeth.
I realize that, but what I'm
Why it was built the way it was.
But what I'm saying is that was designed over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Are we not able to look 10 years later and see if this still makes sense? I mean, just because it was planned 20 years ago doesn't mean we have to do it. It can be reviewed and looked at and see if it maybe doesn't work now. So I just, 20 years ago, set in stone. That's ridiculous.
It is when you already started the build, right? So Hudspeth was built.
Mm-hmm.
All the roads were built to this plan. And now they're continuing. So you don't go back and rebuild the street that connects to the other streets. And I know we've talked about this on the phone before, because it's designed to move that way. It's like trying to move the highway because we decided it's not a good spot for it. It's just not practical. I understand Hudspeth was always going to be it is a minor collector, was always going to be collecting the neighborhoods. That's why the roundabout was there. The only thing we did try to make a choice on was where Loper would connect, and we decided not to connect Loper. So that was a change we made when we built Combs Flat Road. We did consider all these different connections to see how traffic would move the best. And removing all these connections off of Combs Flat is essentially what we did to limit that interaction and make Combs Flat the primary road. So people didn't want to go down Hudspeth. They would take Combs Flat. So that was a concern we did, or a thing we thought about in designing Combs Flat, but Combs Flat was basically chosen. I mean, when Iron Horse did their original design, it dictated in how those original roads were built in Iron Horse 1 and 2 dictate where the next road's going to go. Because you don't go back and rebuild those.
No,
It's just not practical.
but before you keep proceeding into this huge project, you maybe stop before you start and reevaluate things. That's what I don't understand, is that things change all the time. What was good 20 years ago isn't necessarily good today. And if you don't revisit these things, you're just going to end up with a mess because things change and we need to be involved with that and open to it. And there's our little neighborhood right there, our gray area. So that little neighborhood there is being disturbed by everything around us, but we're not being taken into consideration at all. If you wanted to build, there was that one map that had that red road. Josh, it just had a red stripe on it.
Oh. Like when I had
Yeah, it had that red.
Now keep going.
No, not that one.
That's gonna be added.
The one that goes around the school.
oh yeah, like that.
Yeah. See, to me, that red road, that would be a great place to direct people to get out of that neighborhood.
Yeah, and it will be built as well.
I know, but how are you going to encourage people to take a route that's not in a neighborhood versus a route that goes right through the middle of a neighborhood?
In their neighborhood being built south of that, this red road is going to continue up, and then there's also another road planned off screen off to the right to be another thing. So that's all part of the future development plan of this whole area is to move this way out. And so our job, how you say that we're not looking out for the residents, that's what we are doing through this process. Is we're looking at this planned out subdivision. We're trying to make decisions that are the best for this entire build out. So like you mentioned, you were one of the first houses that were built in Iron Horse. I was a kid where your house is, that was a field. I remember flying my kite in that field.
Mm-hmm.
So that your house changed the neighborhood that was there. These houses are going to change your neighborhood. At the time, this was already built and planned. It's hard as an individual to think 20 years in the future when you buy your house, but that plan was there and was available for you to understand what the neighborhood you were buying into. And so we're trying to just make the best choices for the plan for today. We're not changing what was there when you bought your house. Like it's just the process to move forward to keep Prineville growing and prospering. We take it very serious. We're not trying to do you a disservice. We're not thinking about the neighborhood as it was. We're thinking about the neighborhood as it's been planned out for many phases.
I understand what you're saying, but how do I say this?
It takes time and change is constant.
Oh, I know. I work for a general contractor. Trust me. I know how it all works and how it all changes. But I just feel that the current people who have lived in Prineville for 20 some odd years are not taken into consideration for these new places that are being built.
Well, I would just, invite you to attend more planning commission meetings.
If I had known about
Well,
this,
We meet once a month. And there are always public meetings and you're more than-
where are they advertised at?
on the website, on the city website.
What if people don't have a computer? Okay.
Okay,
Seriously, why don't you put these things on the front page of the newspaper?
well, the newspaper decides what they want on the front page. We don't.
Yeah, it's always Tuesdays.
advertised in the paper before the meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, in the back in that little
Well-
fine reading area. You guys are not, you're not making this information, you're not reaching out to the public like I think you should be doing. You are doing the minimal amount by law that's required to advertise for these meetings. I think that you need to,
The thought is that perhaps the next time there's an opening on the planning commission, that you apply to become part of us.
I would love to. As soon as I'm retired, I have a full-time job right now. And in a year, I'll be retired, and that's exactly what I plan to do.
There you go.
Yeah, that and Crook County. So anyway, that's all I have to offer. And these, I would like to see a copy of the CCNRs for this neighborhood. Absolutely would like to see what their plans are. This landscaping is not working.
If I could just say that when we moved to Prineville 11 years ago, we had grass in our front yard and a huge spruce tree that eventually shaded the grass so much that it died. So we went with a xeriscape, basically this
Mhm.
style of yard, and our yard looks nice. We keep it up. So it's also more water efficient because watering a few plants is a lot better use of that resource than watering grass, a full yard. So
I am
just think
sure
that
you're,
there are other ways of looking at things is all I'm saying.
and I'm sure your house is beautiful. I mean, I have no doubt. But I think the mentality of people when they buy a zero-scape house, yard, is they don't have to do anything. And that's what I see out there. They're just, they look awful. There's some houses in Iron Horse that look awful because of that. So that's all I have to say. I got it off my chest. So that's it. Thank you.
You.
Thank you very much.
Next,
Elaine Waterbury. I am the member of the new HOA board for Iron Horse Homeowners Association. And my question is for both the new subdivision and ours, Josh, is I am totally confused as to when you have Combs Flat going through a subdivision, we pay for the entry monument, we pay for the grass, the water, the lighting. As you come up Combs Flat, that's on our HOA.
Right.
What are the next two HOAs, whatever, Barnesby Vista, what are we responsible for off of Combs Flat Road? And what's the city responsible for? Because I don't understand who's paying for what.
Yeah, this is becoming a little bit,
Muddled.
yes, because normally the development would build the road and they would plan in their landscaping as they did up that first portion of Combs Flat. When they built the school, Iron Horse built that. They, the previous HOA, they decided to keep the thing, that was their entrance to their neighborhood, right? Now the city came in and we built our stretch. We have this pipe in the ground, so we can't do a whole lot on that path side. There's kind of a discussion going around on what we should do there. Water's been a big issue. Do we make it go back to natural? I mean, the intent was for the HOA to, each HOA, including Polish above, to maintain that area as part of their development.
So both from this, so there's a sidewalk. So
But
there's a
that hasn't
sidewalk.
been really decided yet, because now we're in this weird situation where I think Brooks Resources would have taken it. And because they want their neighborhood to look a certain way. I don't know as your HOA, if you want it to look a certain way, I would recommend you guys accept it. Then you can do something. Otherwise, the city will end up doing it and you may not like it.
So are you saying, so would you have from the street to the sidewalk? We'd have from the sidewalk to our fences?
You can do it anyway, most likely. Typically, it's curb back. So that between the trail, like, so you're on the east, not the west side. And there's kind of two gaps. So you have the curb, you have a drainage area, and then you have kind of that area between that and the paved path.
Right.
And then you have another area behind the paved path. And then the pipe is under the ground, the big irrigation pipe. So you can't do any large trees, for example. You can do any number of ways. Now, my feeling right now is that's probably going to be the city taking this over. We built the road. We weren't sure. I actually voted for you on your HOA because I'm in that HOA as well. And I don't know what the new board wants to do.
We don't
And
either.
And if you don't want it, we just need to know. It's going to be a coordination piece. On the other side, there's a little less, the sidewalk is really close to the property line. There's not a whole lot of room there.
Okay.
There's going to be some, we're going to work that out with this developer. Plus there's a whole commercial area that will be open. There won't be fences. It'll be an open commercial. They'll landscape that as part of their commercial development. So that's kind of a different animal on the east side, but that west side is a little bit of a struggle for the city right now because we do need to figure out what to do with it and how to maintain it. But we also want to be cognizant to Lauren's point. What does the neighborhood want? What do you guys want to see? Because it can be very simple. It can be a xeriscape type landscaping that is maintained by your HOA, and
With water?
with minimal water or no water, and that way you know what is back there, and the residents that live along there knows what's going to happen back there. I'd love it to go back to kind of a native landscape, but that's going to take a lot of time.
Okay, and then my other thing is looking at this map and seeing the phase of next phases. I'm assuming that anglers from access from phase 2 of ours, which is on the site you can't see off the map to the right.
Yep.
That when Rooted Homes goes in, that they'll have to build that section to their property, but it won't connect to this road, whatever lat it is, C, until the next phases get built, correct? So there will be no through traffic until phase 2 and 3 come online.
Most likely phase 2, yes.
Okay. It's hard to tell on the map when that.
And I
all comes in.
can certainly come to an HOA meeting if you want me to, and we can go through all these
Okay.
types of things. I just didn't know what the board made. I mean, you literally just got created.
We
so-
did. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're babies. All right, thanks.
Yep.
Anyone else in opposition?
We're in questions right now.
Request.
Those questions?
Hi, so I'm Cheryl Roden and I live at 1444 Northeast Husband Road. And I also have a bare lot on the next subdivision coming up on Angler Street. My only concern, guys, is, well, one of them is the dust. Prineville's growing a whole bunch, but I will tell you, I've lived in this subdivision too for 20 years, okay? Living in a subdivision that has mounds of dirt. And when it blows, I am not kidding you guys. I have called Steve Forrester several times as a friend and I said, hey, come up to the dust party. It pelts our houses, guys. It's horrible. So I just think as we want to continue growing, and I'm for growth, but it's got to be contained growth. And I mean, I don't know whether these developers need to put like, you know, water on these. I mean, made to have a water truck there. So all of that stuff keeps damp.
Yes. So to answer the question, they are supposed to do that.
Yeah.
And we have to constantly keep on them as a public works department to keep the water trucks rolling, especially this time of year. Working in the winter doesn't seem to be that big of an issue. You've been dealing with it for a while because you've been on both sides.
Right. Right.
In the phase 1 and 2. And then you had Polish to the north. We
Right.
had those massive mounds. And
Absolutely.
those started blowing around. We had to get on them. They started using this sticky spray, which is weird, but I don't
Mhm.
even know what's in it. So I was kind of like, I'm not sure that should be used, but they just started, and we started covering them. They started doing all kinds of things. And yeah, this area has been a construction zone
For a long time.
for 20 years.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that is an issue. We do have standards in our construction standards to do that. It's just keeping on the operators is the problem.
One other thing is, I think that we really need to take a look at what sizes of trees that we're putting in these subdivisions. Because drive up on Husbeth Road where I live, okay? I have to tell you guys, it should either be put in the HOAs or something, but these trees are out of control. They are so tall.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, yeah, there's,
Discussed this with Iron Horse as well,
Mhm.
with Polish, all the new neighborhoods. So back in those original days, we didn't have a standard.
Right,
So you see a lot of maples up there.
right.
Maples get 40, 50 feet tall. They're really not a great planter strip street tree.
Right.
Because they're too big.
Right.
They have done a good job of putting root barrier in and keeping them from buckling the sidewalks, but we do now have a little more of a tree standard that are smaller. The thundercloud plums, the pears. There's some other locusts. There's some standards. Even Iron Horse now has some
Sure.
different options to put in the
Mhm.
streets.
See, because everybody wants uniformity, and I love that. I love having garages in the back of the house because you don't have all the people parking their cars on the streets and everything else, right? But I just yeah, I mean, those trees are so big, and my grass in the parkway and everything, all of the roots from the trees are coming up. I mean, I've had to have Wendell up there several times and to pay him to try to replace the little sprinklers and everything. And you have to pay somebody during the fall to rake up all of the leaves. And then I rake up mine, and a couple of my neighbors don't. Zach and I and Lori, and I mean, we all keep ours up. But those are just little small things that I think could just make things easier for the homeowners. So that's just my opinion.
Agreed.
Anyone else?
My name is Daniel Ego. I live on 1244 Northeast McRae Court. And for the record, I am a city employee, but I'm speaking on behalf of myself, not for the city. So the one thing that I do want to remind everybody that does live in this neighborhood, as I live in the older side, is that there are a lot of these same smaller type houses in that area. And that does lend to those being rentals. So you are surrounded by that already. So that is one thing to take into consideration, especially in my side of the neighborhood. My house is actually smaller than the smallest one that is in this proposed the building plans. So that's just one thing to take into consideration. And the question I do have with that is, and Eric, you probably have answers to this, are the smaller houses more are those trying to lend toward like the small families starting out like the 2 bedroom, 1 bath type of situation? Okay, because that is something that I do see lacking in this area. So I do support that of if you're 20 to 30 years old, we don't have a lot of opportunities in this market to purchase houses. I got lucky when I bought mine 6 years ago that the interest rates and the house prices were so low that on a single income I could afford that. Now you can't afford any type of house even with 2 incomes. My wife and I couldn't change to a different house if we wanted to, and we have little to no debt on top of our house. So I really do like the idea of the smaller house plans. The other question I do have is with the roundabout going through there, if that commercial section stays, what is the idea for use of that space? Is it for like one big industrial thing in that area, or would it be broken up into maybe smaller shops as is on the west side of that?
So we briefly discussed that in the applicant, Eric kind of mentioned it. There's not a large plan already. There's a concept of a plan, I guess you could say. You got that one? The upper portion next to the Barnsby Rec area will likely be some type of catering, wild ride type catering to that rec center. And then these ones are more like neighborhood shops with residential above. It's going to be interesting to see if it works, because you have that just south of town, right?
Right.
You have the coffee shops, you have some of the things right there at the Otico Plaza. It's not as nice. This could be nicer, and maybe it'll lend itself better. I imagine it is more of the bakeries, coffee shops,
Mhm.
small boutique type stores, maybe like a little downtown, like a mini downtown. But
More like the Bayberry Lanes, that type of
yeah.
smaller.
But is it practice? It's really hard to do commercial without a lot of volume. You're only starting to see that type of thing in Redmond now,
Mhm.
and Bend. 10 years ago they started doing these smaller commercial areas outside their downtown, and we're not even half the size of Redmond right now. So,
Right.
Is it feasible? Could be, and that's the idea. That's why you kind of see it in a shopping mall style
Mhm.
layout. Everything would kind of face in, but Eric can, when he does his rebuttal, he can
Yeah.
talk to that further.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Anyone else? Okay, applicant?
So yeah, lots of great conversation. I guess the first thing, Josh, where would I go to look at all of Hudspeth?
All of Hudspeth. Go to Google Earth, Daniel.
Can I do that?
No, let him swap it. Otherwise, you might turn everything off. And now you have control. You can zoom in.
So I hear your frustration on Hudspeth. You know, Zach Lambert's a good friend of mine. He lives right there. Jason Carr lives right there. But you can see Hudspeth. I mean, when they did this, it was always designed to be that collector of all of those neighborhood streets. The unique situation is people have been living on a collector that dead ended for, oh my gosh, 20 years. 20 years that's been dead ended there. And so, yeah, what was meant to be a busy street, now it's becoming that busy street just because it wasn't punched through. And, once again, that's just the nature of how that subdivision was designed. That road was designed to be a busy road. As far as, I guess, maybe jumping to that most recent question.
Go up and hit the time so you can see Combs Flat.
Oh,
No, the other.
right
Yeah.
there. Yeah, so that's the thing is Hudspeth is how you get to a big part of this neighborhood, right? People come up there and I guess the hope would be people are going to use Combs Flat to get out of there. I know Combs Flat has changed a lot of traffic, we have friends that live north and work at the high school, and that's dropped like 10 minutes off of their commute. For Combs Flat, if you live up on Loper, you probably love Combs Flat because you don't have those people cutting through to get to the school where people used to. But anyways, this subdivision, the nice thing is it's right on an arterial. The traffic study shows, those people are going north and south out of there. The question about the commercial, I agree with Josh that commercial, that might be a long time before that happens. You need a lot of homes close by. But what the thought there is, you'll see this maybe like in Sisters where there's like a nice bookstore or a, you know, a bakery with nice residential above it, you know, something that you would want to walk to. You might not necessarily want to drive to it, but if you're there, you're going to walk over there. Once again, turning it into a walking community.
And then the homes asked about, or maybe you answered that already. The style of home, 2 bedroom, 2 bath type.
Yeah. So what the goal is, you know, somebody that's a single person can afford a different home than somebody that's a family of four or two incomes, right? So those smaller homes are meant to try to be someone's first home. You know, it used to be you could buy a home before you got married. You know, now you pretty much have to be married and win the lottery to buy a home. But that's why we're putting a mix in there from 900 square feet to 1,500 square feet, because I have one person wanting to buy a home or a family of 4 or 5.
What will the prices start at? You have, I mean, just a ballpark.
I'm trying. I'm trying to get them like low 3s. Just everything we can do to get them down there to where somebody can actually afford them, and then do it once again nicely. One thing I want I want you to understand is when Brooks Resources sold this, they pulled it out of the HOA. And that's a big thing that happened there. So you could have manufactured homes going in here. You could have a whole bunch of stuff going in here that could just happen. And in the current state climate, there could be some ugly stuff in there. And so, you know, I do feel that, you know, hear me, as this develops into the future, you want this to be a nice neighborhood, right? You don't want to be trying to sell a, you know, up here on the hill, a $3 million home and having them drive through an ugly area. And yes, some people don't like the xeriscape, but water's expensive. And sometimes having a small yard's more of a pain to have to get out there and mow 100 square feet. So yeah, that's the goal. We'll have a CCNRs, we'll have the HOA. We don't have those completed yet, but you know, once again, this isn't required to have them, but that's our commitment, is that we will have them. And just have a really nice neighborhood that'll be nice for a long time that people can actually get into.
I will just comment that one of my frustrations living in Prineville is that you have a really nice house next to a really crummy house, next to a manufactured home that might be well kept, and then you might have one that's not well kept. And it seems to me that having more planning involved in these instead of the shotgun approach, it benefits the community as a whole.
And I would agree with that, you know, and as we're planning this subdivision, we're thinking about how that works into the future and how it flows through there. And then, you know, really excited to see what the city ends up doing up in this area.
Would you start with some commercial initially and kind of see how it goes? Or are you going to wait until you're ready to build out the whole thing and you think everything would be supported by the community?
There's so many things, you know, if the city does a big rec center, I could see that northern commercial going. You know, I had kids in middle school basketball, and my daughter would have 2 games in the morning in Redmond, and my son would have 2 games in the evening in Redmond on Saturday and Sunday. And there's a lot of time where you're just waiting to do something. And so I do think that, you know, basketball tournaments, you know, swimming meets, things like that, you would have enough there. The nice commercial with the apartments above, that's going to probably be a little bit further out there. But once again, you know, we're not trying to move that tomorrow. You know, it's hopefully it'll be a benefit to that community as that community grows.
So Eric, it'll be a second phase.
Oh.
So they'll plat the subdivision and leave that property likely alone, and then replat that as a second phase
Gotcha.
later once.
And whatever we would do, it would have to come back through the planning commission.
Oh, yeah, well, only if it changed the use, so the commercial that's approved in this would then be regulated by our C4 zone and the phasing that they're proposing, right? If they came back and wanted 4 commercial lots, then they'd have to come back and modify this decision. But if they keep the 3, it's something we do as part of the phasing plat.
I misspoke. It'd have to come back to the city at a minimum.
Yeah, no,
Other questions?
Anything else? Well, I think one thing about the commercial is they would have to have somebody that would want to put a commercial business in there.
Okay.
That would force the decision then is that business right or not?
right, and the beauty about regulating it on the C4 zone is that it's already determined what types of uses can go in, so the C4 zone is designated as a neighborhood. It used to be our neighborhood commercial zone, it's our service commercial zone, or convenience commercial. We only have one zone, it's up where the rooster is now. It allows housing, it conditionally in some, it allows more of that neighborhood type commercial he's talking about. It's very restrictive to say it's not competing with the housing or the commercial on the highway. It's very neighborhood centric. If you can pick up the city code and you can see the type of uses in there are limited to that type of use. So it's going to take, I think, a little more density to make that work.
Okay. Any other questions?
So yeah. Yeah, when they're done, we just have them draft right now. So.
So a lot of that stuff is controlled by city. I'll just explain to the audience. Once these are approved through the land use department, there's a whole nother process that goes through construction drawings. And the city has inspectors and we do the whole process. Part of the dust control is part of that process as well. CCNRs don't get recorded until they actually do a plat. So we won't see that. I usually don't ever see them, honestly. It's more of a courtesy if they show them to me because it is a private thing. CCNRs are not regulated by the city. HOAs aren't regulated by the city. They can come and go as they please. And then everything just defaults to city code. So I think that's a misnomer that some people have, is that we don't control the CCNRs. They're always recorded. They're recorded with the plat. You can get them at the clerk's office. Typically they hand them to us as a courtesy and I'll have those. So you can always come down and get them. If I don't have them, I will get them for you. I can just ask the clerk. But that's how that process works. And the dust control will be handled through the construction drawing process.
I think that the good thing this piece of property has is generally it's fairly vacant to the east. And if you look at the prevailing winds, you know, it's Prineville. So the winds are coming out of the.
Right at Cheryl's house.
Well, you got, that's the problem is like, you know, right in this area right here, right? There's a pile of dirt that's 3 stories high and that's blowing right into these guys. And so, yeah, you know.
Yeah, we're about ready to have them move that because they're going to start on their 7th phase. And see, and this was one of the problems that we had with that subdivision is that up in that area, they didn't have a lot of room to maneuver because the canal was there. Well, the canal has been piped and now that doesn't need to be there anymore. They have access to do a different laydown yard.
Better up in here.
And they're going to start coming in the rimfire connection and we can start moving that dirt off of phase 6 and up into phase 7. Yep. It was.
Okay, anything else? Okay,
Applicant 7, yep, I think we're good.
ready to close it?
Yes.
Okay. Closed. Commission? Comments?
Yes, with this subdivision coming in, they're gonna have to move the fire hydrant out of the middle of the street and suddenly in the roundabout.
They are going to have to move the fire hydrant, yes.
Or been put there to start with. Waste of money.
It was a blow off, so they'll just put it off to the side, but yeah.
And to the side could have been just as easy when it was put in the first time and not waste the money that's gotta be put into it now.
No.
Just an opinion.
I forgot what I was gonna say. Doesn't matter.
I think this plan works good with the adjacency to the school, the future build out of our idea of the rec center area. It's a nice design pocket neighborhood for this particular use, I think. It lends itself to it. Not only now, but the future growth.
Yeah, I like the fact that it's gonna be more affordable than a lot of the new housing.
Yeah, like kind of tailors to young families,
Right.
adjacent to a grade school.
Right.
And I like the fact that they've got a couple of streets that'll go through into future developments too.
Yes.
Help,
So we're not building all new streets all.
yeah, and then help the traffic, on new development.
Right.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Whichever one is building first will build the road that connects Iron Horse Road.
Correct. So they're both conditioned to do their
Do
portion.
you anticipate getting that first? Based
My
on-
guess is they will split the cost. But whoever goes first has to build their section. Brett only has to build a small section, but these guys would have to build the whole thing. So most likely they'll come down and say, hey, let's partner and do this, is my guess.
well, I think of communities in Bend like Northwest Crossing. I like those little walkable communities that have the beauty salon and the food and the little shops and the cute little stuff. And even though I'm quite a bit north, I can ride down my gravel road to an older development into the newer area onto a bike path and just ride my bike there and never have to go into town. So I personally would like the commercial to develop sooner, but
No, so would I.
So
Yeah.
Let Eric know he has a future customer.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I know, I was like, maybe I should put in a coffee shop or something to like, you know, get it going a little bit faster.
I guess any issues with the kind of the modifications, the road, obviously I heard everybody wants the wider streets, B2 standard seems to be the go, the setbacks. It lends itself for creating more parking. I didn't hear any opposition to that. Okay.
The setbacks make sense with getting the parking behind the buildings rather than the road in front of it. So
The only problem with that is they're gonna park in the street anyway.
Some will. And that goes back to the CCNRs and how they operate. And see if most CCNRs do not allow long-term street parking.
It reminds me somewhat of a neighborhood, in Redmond off of 19th. Jack Pond and Ivy and all those streets go back toward Dry Canyon. The homes that are closest to 19th are smaller and they have the rear parking, the alley access to the garages. It always, when I drive through there, it always looks very neat and well kept. And when my sister-in-law lived over there, she was like, no, you can't park in the street, you have to park in the back.
Yep, well, they get pretty restrictive. That's why some people don't like HOAs.
I mean, that's part of the reason for a wider road too, that there can be
Exactly.
availability for temporary parking.
Yes.
Right. And so some of the history on that,
Bad thing,
yeah, the history on that was Iron Horse CCNRs don't allow parking on streets, so they felt they could have narrower streets. Whereas the problem is HOAs can go away anytime. There's nothing keeping them in place.
And who
And-
enforces it?
Well, we don't.
Right, I know.
And so that's why we've kind of moved to this standard street section that I think everybody's kind of agreeing upon.
I think the whole plan, the only concern I had is the commercial access coming out right next to the roundabout, which you addressed in your thing that needs to probably change.
Right.
Yeah.
That the congestion of that is gonna be a problem.
I think it's a little thing, but engineers misspelled. You got engineer.
So when,
I'll fix it in the final.
So when they bring it back, is that when we know like how many bike racks they have planned and things like that for the commercial area?
Yeah, so the commercial will be reviewed completely separately.
Okay,
It won't be a commission decision, it'll be a local one, but you'll see it in your email.
okay.
Like you'll see it in your inbox like we normally do.
Bike parking for when I ride down there.
Okay. We'll do it. We'll do it. It actually, the city does actually have bike parking standards for commercial.
Okay, who's gonna make a motion?
Okay, anything else? If not, we're ready for a motion.
It should be on the back. I don't have it up right now.
Well, I made the last one. Somebody else jump in.
What's your day?
My day?
It was it.
Okay.
I don't know, I'm just waiting.
I'm gonna make a motion in favor of the staff report and record of tonight's proceedings are hereby incorporated as finding a fact in favor of this application. I move that the application be approved, subject to the conditions of approval as they have been finalized and based upon the findings of fact in favor of the application.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None noted.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on,
I have to find my agenda again.
Peters Road Extension update from Planning Commission matters.
All right, what'd you say, Marty? Is
Peters Road Extension.
that on there? Oh, yeah. Here's your extension update. Yeah. Ooh, I'm lost. Okay. I just want to give you guys a little bit of an update on what we're doing on this side of town. So what we've decided to do as a city, because we've been talking about this Smith Landing property for a while, they do have an application in. We deemed it incomplete due to some various issues with traffic and a few other things. What we're going to do is we're actually going to go through a TSP amendment. The current transportation systems plan has the Peters extension coming north and then up and kind of down to Gardner. That was fine. We were going through the TSP. That everybody was kind of like, that's what we're going to do. As we worked with this developer and we actually started to explore different avenues. We showed you this last time of actually staying low and coming up through the Crawford property and doing this. This is kind of a new alignment that we never considered before, never even when we were doing our TSP last year. So to kind of solidify that so we can stop the conversation and basically the argument of where this road goes, we've kind of decided that we're going to go ahead and go through an amendment, actually show it on the map, realigned down below in this alignment, and change go through the cost associated with it. I'm having Kittleson's a traffic engineer, put together a little like pros and cons memo. And most likely that amendment will come to you guys first, unless council just wants it to go directly to them for some reason. I'm going to have a workshop with the council to see if they actually want to do this. They will then initiate it and probably just go through the normal process where we would have a public hearing here. So then the landowners, I've already talked to them, but they have an option to come in and chat about it and get that amendment just done. Now everybody knows where this road is going. The two things this does that we know it'll do is it'll put more of the burden of this road on the city to build it, kind of like Combs Flat Road. It's almost virtually the same scenario. But putting it down low will allow more homes to be built above on the flat ground. So that's kind of a trade-off.
Will we be utilizing the railroad right away, or will the railroad stay?
It will not. The railroad will stay. That is still being utilized by the city for storage. It's also still got a spur line for what is now Lexington manufacturing. So the spur will stay.
Is all the property that would be affected already in the city?
No. Turn the zones on here.
Thank you. Because I didn't think that Crawford's was.
They're not, but they're in the UGB. So the transportation plan is the UGB.
That's
It's
correct.
not just the city limits. So that road will come down here.
Said you got a plan that was incomplete, putting the road at the bottom, does that line up with their plan?
Yes. So they submitted with that. We were like,
Okay.
it doesn't meet our plan. And so this is one of the rubs is we can't just move that road because we're based by doing that. They're not going to build it. Or if you put it up top, they would build it, but then they lose a row of homes. So it's this constant battle. By moving it down below, we're increasing the demand to the city. We're putting the burden on the city. I can't make that decision. You guys can't make that decision. The council has to make that decision because it's a monetary decision. So that's one of the reasons we decided the amendment was the best way to go and just be done with it. So that's a heads up on that.
What about the intersection with Main Street?
That is another thing we're doing. So their current application doesn't really show a need for that. For their entire build out, we're questioning that and getting a third party traffic engineer to take a look.
Expectation that would happen with their build out.
It was before we built Combs Flat.
Oh, so you did yourself.
So we got the right of way for the roundabout. We have a 60% design for the roundabout. Part of the money we worked with Combs Flat, did that, right? We had two different grants, but Combs Flat has peeled a lot of traffic off, making that intersection better. So they have a traffic engineer basically saying, hey, this will work until about 2035, and then you're gonna have to do something. But our build out will function. We're saying that's gonna be tough. There's a fire access that we have to think about. How do you get out of the neighborhood when we're building the thing if there's no secondary out? Because no one to the west is built yet. The roads don't go anywhere. There's a lot of questions around that. So my hope is that we do them a favor. We do the Peters Road extension, and we somehow work out getting that roundabout built sooner rather than later, even if it's with like second, third phase. But having that put in at some point with that development. If they can show, and if our third party consultants can show that, actually this doesn't really meet criteria, then maybe that's just how it is. But that's one of the other issues, fire, and then there's some smaller stuff.
Okay. Does that wrap up that?
That wraps up that.
Anything the commission would like to discuss tonight?
I was just curious if you're watching anything with the issue with Pierce County and the thing with Land Watch, Thousand Friends trying to limit their ability to change zoning.
What type of zoning?
So they were looking at changing a EFU zone into a rural residential.
Oh yeah, anything EFU they
And
go against.
Thousand Friends, the Land Watch came in and have tried to put a stop to it. Essentially, it sounds like it would limit changing any EFU to residential throughout the state.
But
the way they're approaching it.
Was that inside the urban growth boundary or out?
I believe it's inside.
So inside wouldn't make sense. They're going to lose that battle. Outside is where they have the most leverage. We have EFU inside the city, inside the urban growth boundary, but it's like a holding zone.
Right.
Anybody can annex into the city at any time.
This was changing the zoning on EFU to rural residential for development.
And the basis that they argued was the state goal for protection of scenic resources.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I've not.
So that's an ongoing.
So this is Deschutes. Oh, this is Deschutes County, not the city. So it's outside the UGB. It's in the county. Okay.
Right outside.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if you're watching it at all.
I don't normally watch the stuff that happens in the county, only when it enters the city.
I only was watching it because it's limiting zoning, and also I'm on the board for Oregon Realtors and on the board for the local MLS, and we've had meetings about this over the last week.
Yeah. So that type of argument wouldn't apply in the city, but it would apply in Crook County if it went through. And we have a lot of rural residential in Crook County, all of Juniper Canyon, all of Powell Butte, so.
Well, the way it was talked
interesting.
about, it would affect, they were concerned it potentially could affect things for city and county on changing rezoning.
I mean, you never know anymore. What we typically try not to, I like to use the EFU zone when we brought things into the urban growth boundary because it's a great holding zone in my
right.
opinion. Then no one can really do anything. we don't really have a zone to change something to and leave it in kind of a holding pattern. So we just go directly to, high density residential. It's like, you could go R3 or something. So kind of leaving it in that, I think we have some actually north of town here.
Aren't I R3?
Yeah. So here, like your SRM1, but like all this right here is here's the UGB. So this is still EFU. It was just never changed. It was brought in a long time ago, but it doesn't really matter. That can be changed anytime. This, I don't think would change that, but it's an interesting argument because it's already in the urban growth boundary and designated to be in our comp plan, designated to be residential.
Right.
So I don't think they could really do anything about that in the city. In the county, though, there are no designations. There are no, that would be,
The
that's,
way- And like I say, the way it was talked about, conversations I was in this last
Yeah.
week about it, it didn't specify that it would be different for city or county. It would be statewide. It would affect
Interesting.
rezoning.
Interesting. I'll have to look that up. Okay. Good with that. Anything else?
Anything? Nope. Okay, well, update on developments and city projects?
Yeah, I'll be brief since we had a longer than usual meeting. I think as actually mentioned tonight, as far as current ongoing city or next possible commission meeting hearings, we have the Smith Landing property that will eventually come, and we have the rooted homes that was mentioned twice tonight, I think, by somebody else. That's going to be more of that. I have a meeting with them Thursday. I think they're getting close to their funding, and to actually come and build that thing that will be multifamily on the designated multifamily of that area. Again, it won't connect up here. It's still going to be traveling down that same road. Eventually, anglers will connect, and that'll help the whole area again. And this is, I don't know what this is going to be called, but
So where,
that'll connect, and this will connect.
Yeah, one, right
that right there?
up in
The what? The Hudspeth house is here.
There.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. That's unique. There are some new owners of that are trying to do something with it. They need these roads built as well, so it's kind of
There are new owners of that?
I believe so, yeah. At least I talked to them. It's not North Star anymore. So that's coming in. Apartments did open on the mill site.
Yay.
This building's open. This one's next, and they're gonna slowly complete these as they go through. 192 units, and then hopefully they just jump to the next phase here and keep going. We approved the Grocery Bandit addition. That took some coordination, but we got it done. What else was there, Tasha? There was a couple of them. Grocery Bandit. Oh, there's the Commerce Court Industrial up on the hill. I think you saw that come through here. That's kind of a shell building, industrial, four buildings, the data factory. It's like a little I think they switched to AI now. This was actually an application that came through 2 years ago, and they never built it, and now they've come back. It's a little polycloud. It's basically a data center, but it's in those little pods. They're building it as like a contractor yard, so they'll have a building out front. It'll be landscapes fenced just like a contractor yard, except the pods in the back will be a data center. Kind of unique. So there's kind of the three commercial things we've just recently done. And then Matters Highway is getting real close to their first building. So that's kind of what's happening in town. On the public works side, ASR 2 well is nearly complete. You can see the building going up on the hill.
Taking a long time to finish that building.
It is. It is taking a long time. The power was the issue. Trying to get the power to, we had some easements, some county easements overlapping. It was a whole thing. We got that figured out. So that's moving now. And Main Street, North Main Street's, now that the horse races and rodeos over, we're going to start. We finished the South Main. Now we're going to move North Main, and that's going to get
That starts this week.
tore up
right?
and complete. Yeah, it's going to start. I believe we're going to start working on it. Yeah. Oh, and yep. As far as commercials, the CV International, that large building up there is finalized and populating. So that's a big manufacturing facility moving over from Bend. So that's,
You've been having ongoing conversations with the hemp. Off Peter.
so yeah, if you're following that, right now we have a huge fire camp there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, the fire department was at our council meeting last week. They've kind of put the screws to these guys to kind of get their equipment upgraded, get their fire systems upgraded. At the same time, it's kind of interacting with the whole smell issue that we're having, and hopefully they are working on that, filtration systems, all that. It's kind of funny to talk about that now when you can't breathe outside, but
Yeah.
that is an ongoing process and issue with that facility. They're getting it worked out with the fire department. Smell issue is a nuisance issue that the city has to work on. Before the smoke came in, I felt like they were doing a much better job. I hadn't really noticed it.
Now you can't smell it for the wood smoke.
But now you can't at all. So that's one of those ongoing issues that we're still working through. And I talked with them today. So I think they heard the council, they heard the public, they're hearing it again, that they need to kind of do a better job with their
Especially after the
operations.
Fire.
Well, yeah, that was that kind of a side issue to the smell, but it kind of goes to the operations of the whole facility, and that's kind of what I think the fire department was getting at. So I can't think of any other large things to bring you up to speed on. So
Okay. Anything else?
It's time to go.
Ready to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Okay. Meeting's adjourned.
thank you.
Your feet.